That's what your people call the American dream? Washing dishes till your hand's the soap, cheap and disposable. Even a stray dog knows when it's not welcome. Why don't you? Because you'd starve without me.
Craig's smile vanished. Every night, Austin Brooks was the last man standing in this restaurant. 6 days a week, 14 months straight. He'd applied 3 times to move up from the dish pit. 3 letters, 3 rejections. The new dishwasher 3 feet away? That was the CEO. 6 days watching. And tonight, after close, he followed Austin into the dark. What he found in the dark made him break down on the sidewalk like a man who just lost everything he believed in. Ashford's Grill sat on the corner of South Tryon Street in Charlotte, North Carolina, like a place that had earned the right to be there. 8 locations across the Carolinas, 15 years in business. A flagship restaurant that had collected 3 consecutive Best Workplace Awards from the Charlotte Business Journal, each plaque polished and mounted in the lobby where every guest could see them. Elliot Ashford built this company from a 20-seat diner he opened with his wife the year their first daughter was born. He washed dishes himself back then, mopped the floors at midnight, knew every employee by name. But 15 years and 8 locations later, Elliot hadn't set foot in a kitchen in 3 years. He ran the company from a corner office downtown, reading quarterly reports that told him everything was fine. The Charlotte flagship was Craig Whitmore's territory. Had been for 6 years. Craig was the kind of general manager who made the numbers work. Labor costs down, customer satisfaction up, 0 complaints on file. Every regional review came back clean. Every staff photo showed smiling faces. On paper, Craig Whitmore was the best manager in the company. Austin Brooks arrived at 3:47 p.m. every afternoon through the back entrance. He changed into his dishwasher's uniform in the locker room, a thin gray apron, faded and fraying at the edges, noticeably different from the crisp white aprons the kitchen staff wore. He stored his bag in an unlocked locker. Craig never provided locks for the dishwashers. "You don't keep valuables at work," he'd said once, and that was the end of it. Austin was 31, quiet, built like someone who'd spent years on his feet. His hands were rough, cracked at the knuckles, permanently reddened from hours in hot water and industrial detergent. He moved through the dish pit with a precision that didn't match the job, stacking plates in exact order, sorting silverware by type without looking, running the machine in a rhythm that kept pace with the busiest Friday rush without ever falling behind. 26 months ago, Austin Brooks was hired as a line cook, too, at Ashford's Grill's East Side location. Performance reviews. Exceeds expectations. He could break down a whole fish in 90 seconds. He knew every sauce on the menu by taste. The kitchen manager at East Side once told a server, "Austin's the most reliable cook I've got." That was before the complaint. 14 months ago, Austin filed a discrimination report against a shift supervisor at the East Side location. Within a week, the supervisor was transferred. Within 2 weeks, Austin was transferred too, to the Charlotte flagship, reassigned to the dish pit. Temporarily, they told him. Just until we sort things out. 14 months later, he was still scrubbing plates. The break room at the Charlotte flagship had 2 bulletin boards. The first was for front-of-house and kitchen staff. Colorful, covered in photos from team outings, handwritten shout-outs, a printed Employee of the Month ballot. The second board near the back door was for dishwashers. It held a single printed schedule. No photos, no shout-outs, no ballot. Austin's name sat in the bottom corner of that schedule, smallest font. Every shift, close. 6 days a week. No rotation. He never complained about the schedule. He complained once about the job title and learned what complaining cost. On his 4th day at Charlotte, Austin opened his employee profile on the company's internal portal. His title read, Dishwasher. His start date had been reset to 14 months ago. His performance reviews from East Side were gone. Under Prior experience, one word. None. He printed the page, stared at it, then folded it and put it in his locker, next to 3 handwritten letters he'd addressed to HR over the past 14 months, each requesting a transfer back to a line cook position. Each letter was polite, professional, specific. Each one ended the same way. I'm ready whenever you are. Every letter had been stamped, received. Not one had been answered. At 5:15 each evening, Austin's phone buzzed. Same caller. He'd step out to the alley behind the kitchen, past the dumpsters, past the recycling bins, and answer. Hey, Mom. His mother's voice was thinner each week. Type 2 diabetes advancing. Her doctor had recommended surgery. The hospital had sent the estimate. Austin had read the number so many times he could recite it from memory. His dishwasher insurance didn't come close. Line cook insurance would. I'm working on it, Mom, he said, gripping the phone until his knuckles whitened. I just need a little more time. He hung up, stood in the alley for 10 seconds, then walked back inside, picked up a plate, and kept scrubbing. Tuesday morning, Craig Whitmore held his weekly staff meeting in the dining room. Every server, bartender, line cook, and prep cook pulled up a chair. The dishwashers were not on the invite list. They had never been on the invite list. Austin found out about the meeting the way he always did, from Dolores Murray, a server who'd worked at Ashford's Grill for 9 years. She caught him restocking dish soap in the storage closet. There was a meeting this morning, she said. Austin looked at her. When? 8:30, in the dining room. Nobody told me. Nobody ever does, Austin. That's the point. Dolores was 56. She had outlasted 4 general managers, 2 renovations, and a pandemic. She watched. She remembered. And she had learned a long time ago that remembering was dangerous in Craig Whitmore's restaurant. That afternoon, Craig gathered the staff again, this time in the kitchen. He stood next to a young cook named Daniels, 23, hired 5 months ago. Craig put a hand on Daniels' shoulder and addressed the room. I want everyone to congratulate our newest sous chef. Daniels has shown real dedication, real growth, and exactly the kind of energy that fits the kitchen culture we're building here. This is what happens when you show up ready to grow. Applause. Handshakes. Someone popped a bottle of sparkling water like it was champagne. Austin heard the announcement through the dish pit door. The door was open 6 inches, enough to hear everything, not enough to be seen. He knew Daniels, liked him even. Daniels was eager, made mistakes, asked questions. Good kid. But Austin also knew that 3 weeks ago, Daniels had burned a Beurre Blanc so badly the whole station had to be refired. And it was Austin, through the kitchen window, who had talked him through remaking it in 90 seconds. Daniels never mentioned where the help came from. Neither did Craig. Austin dried his hands on his apron, walked to Craig's office, knocked once. Craig looked up from his computer. Got a minute? Austin asked. Sure, buddy, what's up? The line cook position. I've put in 3 requests over the past 14 months. I'd like to know where they stand. Craig leaned back in his chair. His expression didn't change. It never changed. That was the trick. Craig's face was a locked door. Austin, I've told you, there's a process. When you're ready, we'll talk. I've asked 4 times. And I've answered 4 times, buddy. Austin held the doorframe. Daniel started 5 months ago. I've been here 14. I was a line cook before I transferred. Craig tilted his head. Different situations, different skill sets. Daniels fits what we need right now. What do you need? Craig smiled. Someone who's ready. Austin stood there for 3 seconds. Then he turned and walked back to the dish pit without another word. Dolores was waiting by the ice machine. She had heard everything. The walls in this restaurant were thinner than Craig thought. You okay? She asked. Same answer as always. Dolores glanced over her shoulder, lowered her voice. I was in the meeting this morning. Craig told Daniels, in front of everyone, that they finally found someone who fits the kitchen culture. His exact words. She paused. I've been here 9 years, Austin. I know what that means. So do you. Austin said nothing. He looked at the dish pit, looked at the kitchen door, looked at the plaque on the lobby wall that read, "Best Workplace." He went back to scrubbing. 20 minutes later, a new dishwasher, white, 19, 3 weeks on the job, walked up to Craig's office with the same question. "Any chance of moving to prep cook?" Craig's response, "Absolutely. Let me get you on the schedule for a trial shift next week." Austin heard it through the wall. That evening, Dolores stood alone in the lobby after her shift. She stared at the anonymous feedback box mounted near the host stand, the one the company had installed last year as part of its Employee Voice Initiative. She pulled a pen from her apron, wrote 7 words on a napkin. "Check Austin Brooks's file, the real one." She folded it twice, dropped it through the slot, and walked out. She didn't know that Craig emptied that box every Friday. She didn't know her note would never reach a single person in corporate. But she wrote it anyway, 300%. That was the number on Elliot Ashford's screen. Annual dishwasher turnover at the Charlotte flagship, 300%. Every other position in the restaurant sat below 40. Cooks, servers, bartenders, they stayed. Dishwashers disappeared like they were never there. Elliot stared at the number from his corner office on the 14th floor. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Charlotte skyline. On his desk, a framed photograph. 23-year-old Elliot standing in front of a 20-seat diner, arm around his wife, both of them grinning like they'd just conquered the world. He was wearing a dishwasher's apron in that photo. His COO, seated across the desk, shrugged it off. "Charlotte's numbers are great otherwise. Revenue's up 11%. Guest satisfaction is the highest in the region. Craig runs a tight ship." "A tight ship doesn't lose people that fast," Elliot said. He turned the monitor so his COO could see. 300% means we replace every dishwasher 3 times a year. That's not turnover, that's a revolving door." "It's the dish pit, Elliot. Nobody stays in the dish pit." "I did." The COO went quiet. That night, Elliot sat at his kitchen table after his wife and daughters went to bed. He pulled up the Charlotte flagship's roster on his laptop, scrolled through names. Most dishwashers lasted 2 to 4 months. One name had been there for 14 months, Austin Brooks. 14 months in a position with 300% turnover. Either Austin Brooks was extraordinary or something was holding him there. Elliot picked up his phone, called his wife from 2 rooms away. She answered on the first ring. "You're about to do something, aren't you?" she said. "I want to go undercover, Charlotte, the dish pit." Silence for a moment. Then, "You used to wash dishes yourself at the first place, remember?" Elliot looked across the hall at the framed photo on his office wall, the same one on his desk, the same 20-seat diner, the same apron. "Yeah," he said, "I remember." "Then go remember again." Monday morning, Elliot Ashford showed up at the Charlotte flagship's back entrance at 3:30 p.m. Clean shave, baseball cap, jeans, a borrowed name on a fake application, Eddie Carlisle. Employment history, grocery store stockroom, no kitchen experience. He wanted to enter at the lowest rung, the same way every dishwasher did. Craig Whitmore met him at the door. Firm handshake. Didn't look at his face for more than a second. "Eddie, welcome aboard." Craig pointed down the hallway. "Dish pit's through there. Stay out of the kitchen." First instruction. First red flag. Elliot walked through the hallway, pushed open the dish pit door. The heat hit him first. A wall of damp, sour air, thick with the smell of industrial soap and old grease. The noise came next. The mechanical churn of the dishwasher, the clatter of plates stacked too fast, the muffled roar of the kitchen on the other side of a half-open window. Austin Brooks was already there, apron on, hands in the water. He glanced at Elliot, quick, measuring, then looked back at the sink. "You the new guy?" "Yeah, Eddie." "Austin." A nod, nothing more. Elliot tied on his apron, thinner than he expected, a different color than the kitchen staff's, fraying at the hem. He stepped up to the second sink and plunged his hands into the water. The kitchen was 3 feet away, visible through the pass-through window. He could hear the cooks laughing, smell the garlic hitting hot pans, see the energy, the movement, the life of a restaurant at full speed. And he was on the other side of the glass, invisible, scrubbing someone else's plates. When did my company start having a back room? He thought. He didn't know yet, but he was about to find out. Day 1. Elliot learned 3 things before his first shift ended. The first, Austin Brooks was the fastest, most organized dishwasher he had ever seen. Not just efficient, precise. Plates sorted by size before they hit the rack. Silverware separated by type without looking. The machine loaded, run, and unloaded in a rhythm that never broke, not even during the Friday dinner slam when tickets backed up to the window and the kitchen was screaming for clean sauté pans. The second, nobody spoke to Austin unless they needed something. Servers dropped bus tubs at the edge of the pit without eye contact. Line cooks yelled for clean plates through the window and walked away before Austin could respond. Craig passed the dish pit 4 times during the shift. He didn't look in once. The third, the schedule board in the break room told a story if you knew how to read it. Elliot studied it during his 10-minute break. Every cook rotated. Mornings 1 week, evenings the next. Servers swapped weekends. Bartenders alternated closes. Austin's name appeared in the same slot every single day. Close, Monday through Saturday. 12 consecutive days without a day off. Elliot asked the shift lead about it. "That's just how Craig does it," she said, already walking away. "Dishwashers fill gaps." That night, as they wiped down the stations after close, Elliot tried conversation. "How long you been here, Austin?" "A while." "You ever want to cook?" Austin's hands stopped moving. Just for a second, a hitch so small that anyone else would have missed it. Then they started again. "I used to." He didn't say anything else. Day 3. Friday rush. The kitchen was a machine running hot. Every burner lit, every station slammed, tickets printing faster than the expediter could call them. Then the fish station fell behind. Daniels, the newly promoted sous chef, was drowning. 2 salmon entrees backed up, then 4, then 6. The expediter started shouting. Austin appeared at the kitchen doorway, calm, apron still dripping. "I can jump on fish," he said, "just until Daniels catches up." Craig materialized from nowhere, stepped directly between Austin and the kitchen. "Back to the pit, Austin. You're not trained for this." "I've done this before, Craig. You know I have." "I know what your file says. Dish pit." Craig held the doorway until Austin turned around. The kitchen watched. Nobody said a word. Daniels stared at his cutting board. The expediter looked at the ceiling. Austin walked back to the sink, picked up a plate. Then, quietly, to Elliot, "My file says whatever he wants it to say." Elliot filed that sentence somewhere deep. 10 minutes later, Daniels was still struggling. The fish was going out overcooked, and a foretop had just sent back their entrees. Austin stood at the dish pit window. Without raising his voice, he called out, "Daniels, drop the temperature 20 degrees. Sear 90 seconds, flip once, finish in the oven. Don't touch it after the flip." Daniels looked at him, looked at the door where Craig had stood. Then he adjusted the burner. The next 4 plates went out perfect. At the end of the night, Craig clapped Daniels on the shoulder in front of the whole kitchen. "That's the kind of recovery I'm talking about. Great work, Daniels." Austin scrubbed the last sauté pan in silence. Day 4. Elliot discovered the 2-tier system. It wasn't written anywhere. It didn't have to be. It lived in the spaces between the rules, the gaps that Craig had carved out over 6 years until they felt permanent. Staff meetings, kitchen and front of house only. Dishwashers were not invited, not informed, not mentioned. Elliot asked Craig directly, "Can I sit in on the meeting?" Craig laughed, a short, easy laugh like Elliot had said something endearing. "It's not for dish guys, Eddie. Nothing in there concerns you." Tip pool. Servers and cooks shared tips at the end of every shift. Dishwashers, who regularly bust tables during rushes, carried plate stacks from the dining room, and restocked glassware on the floor, received nothing. Dishwashers don't interact with guests, Craig told Elliot when he asked. They don't represent the brand. Dolores Murray, the 9-year server, set Elliot straight during a quiet moment by the ice machine. Before Craig, everyone shared tips. He changed it his first year, said it was industry standard. She looked over her shoulder. It's Craig's standard. Then she told him about the overtime. Austin stayed late after every close, 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes more, scrubbing the walk-in cooler, mopping the storage room, breaking down delivery boxes. None of it was on the clock. Craig called them closing responsibilities. If Austin didn't finish, he got written up for incomplete closing duties. If he did finish, he didn't get paid. How long has this been going on? Elliot asked. Since Austin's first week, Dolores said. Same thing happened to the dishwashers before him. They all quit. Austin didn't. Day 5. Elliot cornered Dolores again during the afternoon lull. He needed to understand the scope. How long has Austin been doing this? Teaching from the dish pit? Dolores set down the silverware she was rolling. Since his first month, the beurre blanc that Daniels got promoted for? Austin talked him through it. The scallop sear that got us a 5-star review last month? Austin's technique. He taught the night cook through the window. Half the things Craig takes credit for started with Austin whispering through that window. Why hasn't anybody said something? Dolores pulled out her phone, scrolled to a text message dated 6 months ago, from Craig. She held it up so Elliot could read it. Keep asking questions, Dolores, and your Saturday doubles disappear. Your call. Elliot read it twice. Dolores put the phone away. Saturdays are half my income, she said. I've got 2 grandkids. You tell me what I'm supposed to do. Elliot didn't answer. He didn't have one. Day 6. The breaking point came at 9:47 p.m. Austin was working his 12th consecutive shift. Close last night, open to close today. Less than 6 hours of sleep between them. His eyes were glazed. His movements, usually fluid, had gone mechanical. At 9:47, he lifted a full tray of wine glasses from the counter. His hands cramped. The tray tilted. 32 glasses hit the tile floor in a sound like the whole room shattering. The kitchen froze. Every head turned. Craig walked over, slow, hands in his pockets. He stood over the broken glass and looked at Austin the way someone looks at a stain on a carpet. That's coming out of your check, Austin. Austin stared at him. Something flickered behind his eyes. A flash of every shift, every ignored letter. Every time he'd been told to stay out of the kitchen he was keeping alive. Rage, exhaustion, both. Then he crouched down and started picking up the pieces with his bare hands. A shard sliced his palm. Blood ran across the broken glass. He pulled a side towel from his apron, wrapped his hand without a word, and went back to work. Nobody offered him a bandage. Nobody said anything. Craig had already walked away. Elliot stood in the dish pit, 3 feet from where it happened, holding a clean plate he couldn't feel. He stared at the blood on the towel around Austin's hand. Then he set the plate down, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and put both hands on the sink. He looked at himself in the mirror. He built this company. This was his company. His name was on the plaques. His face was on the website. His values were printed on the wall of every location. Respect, dignity, family. His hands were clean. Austin's were bleeding. Elliot stayed in that bathroom for 4 minutes. When he came out, his face was calm. But something behind his eyes had changed. The same look a man gets when he stops investigating and starts deciding. That night, after the last plate was scrubbed and the lights went dark, Austin untied his apron, wrapped his injured hand with a fresh towel, and walked out through the back door. Elliot clocked out 2 minutes later, walked to the parking lot, got in his car, and followed him. Austin's car didn't turn toward home. Elliot followed at a distance, 3 car lengths back, headlights dimmed. They drove past the residential streets south of Tryon, past the strip malls and gas stations that marked the edge of the city's restaurant district. Austin's brake lights flashed at a hospital entrance. Mercy General. The parking lot was nearly empty at this hour. Austin pulled into a spot near the emergency wing and got out. Still wearing his restaurant uniform, damp, wrinkled, smelling of dish soap. He walked through the automatic doors without hesitation, like a man who had made this walk many times before. Elliot parked across the lot, waited 2 minutes, then followed. He found Austin on the 3rd floor, room 314. The door was open. Austin sat in a plastic chair beside his mother's bed. She was asleep. A heart monitor beeped in a slow, steady rhythm. An IV dripped. The fluorescent lights hummed, that flat, buzzing white that makes everything look tired. Austin reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully, the way someone handles something they've read too many times. His lips moved as his eyes traced the numbers. The paper was a hospital invoice. At the top, the surgery estimate. At the bottom, circled in pen so many times the ink had torn through. Insurance coverage, insufficient. Employer plan does not meet surgical threshold. And in the margin, in Austin's handwriting, 11 days. Austin stared at the number, put his head in his hands, held that position for 5 seconds. Then he straightened up, refolded the paper, slid it back into his pocket, and reached over to adjust his mother's blanket. Elliot stepped back from the doorway, leaned against the corridor wall, closed his eyes. The 3 best workplace plaques flashed behind his eyelids like a bad joke. He left the hospital without making a sound. It was nearly 1 a.m. when Elliot pulled into the restaurant parking lot. The building was dark. He used his master key on the back entrance and walked through the empty kitchen to the employee locker area. Austin's locker, the one he'd glimpsed on his first day, the one without a lock because Craig never provided one, was closed but unlatched. Elliot opened it. Inside, stacked neatly on the top shelf, 3 handwritten letters, each one addressed to the Human Resources Department at Ashford's Grill Corporate, each one requesting a transfer from dishwasher to line cook, each one dated, the first written 13 months ago, the last written 6 weeks ago. He picked up the first letter. The handwriting was careful, steady, the kind of penmanship that comes from someone who understands that how you present yourself on paper matters. The request was specific. Austin cited his prior title, his performance reviews, his food safety certification. He offered to take a skills test. He offered to work a trial shift without pay. Every letter ended with the same sentence. "I'm ready whenever you are." Every letter bore the same stamp in red ink. Received. Not one had a response attached. Beneath the letters, a food safety certificate, current, passed with a score of 96%. And below that, a photograph. Austin in a crisp line cook uniform, arm around a colleague, both grinning. On the back, written in pen, a date, 26 months ago, a different location, a different life. Elliot held the photograph in one hand and looked at the dish pit 10 feet away. The same man, the same company. 26 months between that smile and this sink. He put the photograph back, took the letters with him, walked to the back office, sat down, opened his laptop, logged into the company's HR system with his CEO credentials. He typed, Austin Brooks. The file loaded. Title, Dishwasher. Start date, 14 months ago. Prior experience, none listed. Elliot clicked Edit History. The screen reorganized. A column of timestamps, login names, and changes made. Original entry, 26 months ago. Line Cook 2. Performance rating, exceeds expectations. Supervisor notes, exceptional knife skills, reliable, recommend for advancement. My, 14 months ago. Title changed to Dishwasher. Start date reset. Performance history deleted. Prior experience cleared. Discrimination complaint status changed to resolved. No action needed. Last modified by Craig Whitmore. Date of modification, 7 days after Austin filed his complaint. Elliot sat in the dark office. The screen glowed blue on his face. Outside, the kitchen was silent. The dish pit was empty. The plaques on the lobby wall were invisible in the dark, but he knew they were there. He could feel them. He whispered to no one, "What did I let happen?" Then he picked up his phone, dialed his head of HR. It was 2:14 a.m. "I need a full audit on the Charlotte location. Every file, every edit, every complaint. Start tonight." 2 days later, Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Every employee at the Charlotte flagship received the same text from corporate. "Mandatory all-staff meeting, dining room, 10 a.m., no exceptions." Craig Whitmore didn't think twice. He'd run 100 of these meetings. He set up the chairs himself, rows facing the front, a podium he'd pulled from the storage closet, a projector screen he assumed was for a quarterly review slideshow. He even brewed a fresh pot of coffee. By 9:55, every server, bartender, cook, prep cook, and dishwasher sat in the dining room. Austin Brooks stood in the back row near the door, arms folded. Dolores Murray sat 3 rows ahead, clutching her apron in her lap like a rosary. Craig took his position at the front, straightened his collar, cleared his throat. The front door opened. Elliot Ashford walked in. No baseball cap, no fake name, no apron. He wore a dark suit, and he carried a manila folder in his left hand. Craig's face moved through 3 expressions in 2 seconds: recognition, confusion, dread. His hand, holding a coffee mug, lowered to the podium. "Eddie?" "It's Elliot, Craig. Elliot Ashford." He stopped 5 feet from the podium. "I own this company." The room went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that has weight to it. 36 employees staring at a man they'd worked beside for 6 days without knowing his name. Elliot didn't sit down. He didn't smile. He faced Craig the way a surgeon faces an incision. No anger, no hesitation, just the steady certainty of someone who already knows what's underneath. "I'm going to ask you some questions, Craig. I'd like honest answers. Can you do that?" Craig's jaw tightened. "Of course." "How many dishwashers have worked at this location in the last 2 years?" Craig shifted his weight. "I'd have to check the—" 14, I checked." Elliot opened the manila folder. 14 dishwashers in 24 months. Turnover rate, 300%. Every other position in this restaurant is below 40. He let the number sit. "How many of those 14 were promoted to any other position?" Craig's mouth opened, closed. "0, Elliot said. "The answer is 0. He turned to the projector screen, clicked a remote. 2 documents appeared side by side, blown up large enough for every person in the room to read. The left side, Austin Brooks's original HR file. Title, Line Cook 2. Performance rating, exceeds expectations. Supervisor notes, exceptional knife skills, reliable, recommend for advancement. Start date, 26 months ago. The right side, Austin Brooks's current HR file. Title, Dishwasher. Prior experience, none listed. Start date, 14 months ago. Performance history, blank. At the bottom of the right side document, highlighted in yellow, last modified by Craig Whitmore. Date, 7 days after discrimination complaint filed. The room didn't gasp. It was worse than a gasp. It was 36 people reading the same thing at the same time and understanding exactly what it meant. Craig's hand started trembling. The coffee mug rattled against the podium. Elliot pulled a single printed email from the folder. "This is an email you sent to HR 4 months ago, Craig, recommending that Austin's transfer request be denied. Your reason," he read it aloud, and I quote, "the candidate does not fit the kitchen culture we are building." He set the email down, looked at Craig. "What culture is that, Craig? Because from where I was standing, in the dish pit for 6 days, the culture in this kitchen was being built by a man you locked out of it." Craig's mouth moved. "I can explain." "You wrote it. You don't need to explain it." Elliot turned to the back of the room. Austin stood against the wall. His arms had dropped to his sides. His face was unreadable. Austin. Elliot's voice shifted. Still firm, but something beneath it cracked, like a beam under too much weight. Your file was changed. Your complaint was buried. Your letters were never forwarded. He reached into the folder and pulled out 3 handwritten letters, held them up so the room could see. Every one of these said the same thing at the end. I'm ready whenever you are. Elliot's voice broke on the last word. He steadied himself. You were ready. You were always ready, and I'm sorry it took me putting on an apron to see it. Austin didn't cry. He didn't speak, but something shifted in his posture. His shoulders drew back, his chin lifted, and he stood straighter than anyone in that room had ever seen him stand. Not pride, not anger, something quieter. The look of a man who had been told for 14 months that he didn't exist, and was now standing in a room full of people who could finally see him. Elliot turned back to Craig. You're relieved of your position, effective immediately. HR will contact you regarding next steps. Craig opened his mouth, closed it, set the coffee mug down on the podium with a click, walked to the door, opened it, walked out. The door closed behind him. Nobody followed. Elliot faced the room. This man's name is Austin Brooks. His title, his real title, is Line Cook II, as of today. Silence held for 3 seconds. Then Dolores Murray in the 3rd row started clapping. Alone at first. One pair of hands in a quiet room. Then Daniels joined. Then a server near the window. Then another. Then the whole room. 35 people standing, applauding, some of them looking at Austin like they were seeing him for the first time. Austin's eyes glistened. He pressed his lips together, nodded once. Once was enough. The applause faded. The chairs stayed. Nobody left. Elliot pulled a chair from the front row, set it across from the podium, and sat down. He didn't stand over the room. He sat in it. Then he asked Austin to come forward. Austin walked through the rows. Every pair of eyes followed him. He sat down across from Elliot, the first time in 14 months that Austin Brooks had been at a table in this restaurant as anything other than the man who cleaned them. Elliot opened a second folder. Inside, a printed employment contract. He slid it across the table. Line Cook 2, full benefits package, the one that covers surgical procedures. Backdated to your original start date 26 months ago. He paused. Back pay for the 14-month salary difference between Dishwasher and Line Cook will be deposited into your account by Friday. Austin read the contract. His eyes moved line by line, steady, careful. The same way he read his mother's hospital invoice every night, except this time the numbers were moving in his direction. He looked up. And my mom's surgery? Your insurance is upgraded to the Line Cook tier. Retroactive. Elliot held his gaze. I called Mercy General this morning. They confirmed coverage. You have 9 days. That's enough. Austin closed his eyes. One breath. Long, slow, controlled. The kind of breath a man takes when he's been holding something for 14 months and can finally set it down. He opened his eyes, picked up the pen from the table, a company pen, the kind that sat on Craig's desk, the kind that was never offered to dishwashers, and signed his name. Elliot nodded. Then he stood and faced the room. What happened to Austin didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because I built a system with gaps wide enough for someone like Craig to operate inside them for 6 years without anyone above him noticing. He let that settle. That ends today. He walked to the projector, clicked to a new slide. 5 bullet points. No jargon, no corporate language, just structure. Effective immediately across all 8 Ashford's Grill locations. First, anonymous complaint channel. Every location will have a direct reporting line to an external ombudsman, not internal HR, not your general manager. If you have a problem, it goes outside this building to someone who doesn't work for me. If you're afraid to use your name, you don't have to. Dolores Murray straightened in her seat. Second, Mandatory promotion review every 6 months for every employee. No manager can block a promotion without documented, verifiable reasons reviewed by a third party. If you've been in the same role for 6 months and you've asked to move up, someone outside this restaurant will look at your file and tell you why or why not. In writing. Austin, still seated at the table, looked at the 3 letters in Elliot's hand. Third, HR file protection. Starting today, only corporate-level HR can modify employment history. Every edit requires dual authorization and a logged justification. No single person at any location can change your title, your start date, or your performance record. A cook in the middle row leaned forward. Fourth, tip pool equity. Every employee who performs tipped service duties, bussing tables, restocking the floor, running food, shares in the tip pool, regardless of job title. If you do the work, you get the pay. Period. 2 dishwashers in the back row exchanged a glance. Fifth, schedule fairness. No employee will be assigned more than 5 consecutive closing shifts without rotation. Close to open scheduling, less than 10 hours between shifts, is prohibited, effective today. If your schedule doesn't give you time to sleep, it's not a schedule, it's punishment. Elliot clicked off the projector. The screen went white. He walked to the lobby. Every head in the room turned to follow him. He stopped in front of the wall where 3 best workplace plaques hung in a neat row, polished, gleaming, perfectly aligned. He lifted the first one off its hook, then the second, then the third. He stacked them face down on the host stand. These go back up when every person who works in this building, dish pit to dining room, tells me they're true. He looked at the empty wall. Not before. He walked back to the dining room, stopped in front of Austin, who was still seated, the signed contract in front of him. I don't just want you back on the line, Austin. I'm forming an employee equity committee. 7 employees from different locations, different roles. People who know what it looks like when the system fails because they've lived it. He paused. I want you to sit on it. Austin tilted his head. You want the dishwasher on your committee? I want the man who wrote 3 letters nobody read to make sure no one's letters get buried again. Austin looked at the contract, looked at the letters on the table, looked at the empty hooks on the lobby wall where the plaques used to hang. I'll do it. Elliot nodded. Then he turned and found Dolores Murray in the 3rd row. Dolores, you dropped a note in the feedback box. Her eyes went wide. You saw that? Craig emptied that box every week. Your note never reached me. He paused. But your courage did, through a different door. I'm creating a direct line from every location to my office, and I need someone at Charlotte who isn't afraid to use it. He looked at her. I'd like that person to be you. Dolores gripped the apron in her lap. 9 years of watching. 9 years of remembering. 9 years of being told that remembering was dangerous. You're asking me? I'm asking the person who spoke up when it cost something. Dolores straightened her back, let go of the apron, folded her hands on the table. Then yes. The first thing Austin did as a line cook wasn't cook. He walked into the kitchen through the door, not the window, not the 6-inch gap he'd been whispering through for 14 months. The door, the same one Craig had blocked with his body on that Friday night when the fish station was drowning. Daniels was at his station, prepping for the evening service. He looked up when Austin walked in, stared at the crisp, white apron, the same kind everyone in the kitchen wore, the kind Austin had never been given. He set down his knife. About time. Austin almost smiled. Better late than never. They bumped fists. Daniels knew. He'd always known where his beurre blanc save came from, where the scallop technique came from. He just never had the power to say it out loud. Austin picked up a chef's knife from the magnetic strip. His hand, the same hand sliced open by broken glass 6 days ago, didn't shake. He turned to the prep list and started working. 2 weeks in, a new dishwasher arrived. 20 years old. First restaurant job. He stood in the dish pit doorway looking overwhelmed, already calculating how long he'd last. Austin found him during the afternoon lull. I'm Austin. I started where you're standing. How'd you get out?
I wrote everything down.
Every request, every idea, kept copies. He pointed to the new schedule board. Fair rotation, closing shifts distributed evenly, every name in the same font size. If something's wrong, talk to Dolores. She listens. Dolores Murray had spent 9 years watching bulletin boards collect dust. Now, she was building one. The new employee spotlight board went up in the break room. 1 board, not 2. Front of house and back of house on the same surface for the first time in 6 years. First spotlight, Austin Brooks. Dolores reprinted the photograph from his locker. Austin in his line cook uniform at the East Side location, grinning wide. She framed it and mounted it at the center of the board. Below the photo, she laminated the 3 letters. All 3, side by side, stamped "Received," each ending with the same sentence. She added a handwritten label in black marker. 3 letters, 0 answers, 1 man who never stopped asking. 3 weeks after the surgery, Austin's mother walked into Ashford's Grill through the front door. She moved slowly, still recovering, but she moved on her own. Austin met her at the host stand. His name was stitched on his kitchen whites. She looked at him, looked at the restaurant. "You work here?" "I cook here, Mom." He led her to a table near the window and disappeared into the kitchen. 5 minutes later, he came back carrying a plate. Pan-seared salmon, roasted vegetables, a beurre blanc sauce so clean it caught the light. His mother took 1 bite, set down her fork, reached across the table and took his hand, the scarred hand, the one that had bled on a towel while nobody helped, and held it in both of hers. "I always knew," she said. Austin didn't answer. He didn't need to. A Thursday evening in late October, the Charlotte flagship was between rushes. Elliot Ashford walked in through the back entrance. No announcement, no suit, jeans, rolled up sleeves. He walked through the kitchen, past the line, and stopped at the dish pit. The new dishwasher was working, the 20-year-old already finding his rhythm. Elliot stepped up to the second sink, turned on the water, picked up a plate, started washing. Austin saw him from across the kitchen through the pass-through window. The CEO of 8 restaurants, scrubbing plates in the same pit where Austin had spent 14 months. Their eyes met. Austin nodded. Elliot nodded back. No words, no speeches, just 2 men who understood what that sink meant and what it cost to stand beside it. 6 months later, Austin Brooks held the title of senior line cook at the Charlotte flagship, with a recommendation for sous chef pending review. The Employee Equity Committee he chaired had reviewed 340 employee files across all 8 Ashford's Grill locations. 12 cases of undocumented demotions were found and corrected. 3 managers were retrained. 1 was terminated. The anonymous complaint channel had received 86 reports in 6 months. Every single one had been answered. On a Friday afternoon, Elliot Ashford walked into the Charlotte lobby carrying something under his arm. He stopped in front of the empty wall, the 3 hooks still bare where the best workplace plaques had hung since the day he took them down. He looked through the pass-through window. Austin was on the line, calling orders, moving with the kind of quiet authority that only comes from someone who earned his place twice. Daniels worked beside him. The new dishwasher rotated through a fair schedule. Dolores was on the floor, seating a 4-top, her direct line to Elliot's office saved in her phone. Elliot hung the first plaque back on the wall, then the second, then the third. This time, they meant something. Next to the host stand, where Craig's feedback box used to collect dust, a new display case had been mounted. Clear acrylic, visible to every guest and employee who walked through the front door. Inside it, 3 handwritten letters, preserved behind glass. Each one stamped "Received," each one ending with the same sentence. Below them, a small engraved plate. Every voice deserves an answer. If you've ever written something, a request, a resume, an email, that nobody answered and you kept going anyway, this story was for you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you run a team, Ask yourself one question. Whose letters are sitting unanswered right now? Subscribe, because every story we tell here is about the people the system tried to make invisible.
Three letters, 14 months, 0 replies, and every single one ended the same way. I'm ready whenever you are. Craig never find Austin. He just erased him, wiped his title, his reviews, his history, and waited for him to quit like the 13 before him. But here's what this story really taught me. You can delete someone's file, you can block them from the room, you can give their credit to someone else, but you cannot erase what a person is worth, not when they refuse to forget it themselves. And the people who try to make you invincible, they don't do it because you are not enough. They do it because you're proof that they never were. That's not just Austin's story. That's the truth that echoes in every workplace, every system, every room where someone with power decides who gets seen and who doesn't. So here's what I want you to sit with tonight. If someone erased everything on your resume tomorrow, your title, your history, your name, what would still be true about you? And who around you is being made invincible right now while you are watching? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because every story here is about the people the world tried to make invincible. Your worth was never up for a vote.